Good morning, welcome back to Pine Hollow Auto Diagnostics. Look at this beautiful German automobile behind me. It's a 2009 BMW 335i. It's the coupe. It looks absolutely mint, like it just rolled off the showroom floor. 6-speed manual, and it only has 27,000 miles on it. Unbelievable. So the owner, it's his Sunday driver. It's, parked in his garage most of the time. He got recommended to me by another shop. His complaint is he just lost turbo power. This is a straight 6 turbocharged 3-liter engine, and he said he was driving on the highway one day. He got to his destination, everything was fine. Then he started his car up, burnt, low power. Check engine lights on. Says go to the dealer. Well, he says he's hesitant to go to the dealer because he's afraid they're gonna rake him over the coals and try to sell him a new car, which is probably true. For a 2009 BMW, they want to sell you the 2024 model or whatever, and this one they could probably resell for quite a bit. So it's here. Let's take a look at the trouble codes. Let's see how it drives and see what's wrong with this German creation. So off camera I did a full health report. It's saved here on my laptop. Let's take a look. 8 codes stored in the engine control module, the DME. We have power management, boost pressure control deactivation. So this code right here means that the car is trying to save itself and basically cut off the turbo. So that matches the customer complaint. But why did that happen? Let's keep reading the codes. Master relay, shift delay, not exactly sure what that means. Power management, vehicle electrical system, it's kind of a generic code. Camshaft sensor, exhaust signal. Okay, this one, that seems pretty important. If it loses a cam signal, it'll probably go into limp mode. Message electric coolant pump missing. Okay, engine switch off time plausibility. Again, rationality code. And then it says camshaft sensor exhaust synchronization. So right off the bat, these 2 codes, a cam sensor on the exhaust side, that's what I want to focus on. Now, one thing that is a good thing to do is, you have the full vehicle health report on the OEM side. Go into OBD2 and see what that stored, because the code numbers here, these are OEM code numbers, but we want to see what is the OBD2 equivalent. That can shortcut our diagnostic time drastically. So I did that, OBD2 code health report. It just said one code. P0365 camshaft position sensor bead circuit bank 1. Okay, now you're like, oh wow, we don't have to guess which one of those 8 codes to go after. That's the main problem. This camshaft signal code on the exhaust cam sensor. Okay, great. Let's look up some information. So if you look up P0365, indeed it's equivalent to the 2AA1 OEM code. Camshaft sensor exhaust signal. Okay, so basically you can't see that cam sensor. Default mode. So not very helpful here, but this is the code we're going to chase. Right off the bat, let's look at the wiring diagram. Now, you could try finding this thing in OE diagrams. It's a pain in the butt because there's like 20 diagrams listed, but in the redrawn, here I found intake cam sensor, exhaust cam sensor, front of engine, and we see the 3 wires here. So orange is going to be the power feed. That's a 12-volt power feed. You can trace it back and click on it and see it comes from a fuse at the DME relay. So perfect. We got a power feed. Then we're worried about this one right here, exhaust camshaft. Then we have this wire, it says sensor to ground, and finally this wire, sensor to signal. So pretty straightforward. We have 3 wires. Let's find this sensor and see if we have power and ground when we switch the key on. If we do, we'll put an oscilloscope on the signal wire and see if we're missing a signal. Pretty straightforward. So this thing is packed under the hood. So if we looked at the front of the engine, right down here we see our Vano solenoids. Those are the VVT solenoids. So intake, exhaust, and then the cam sensors right there, that's the intake cam sensor, and then right down here, see those 3 wires coming out? If the camera decides to focus, right there. That's our exhaust cam sensor. It's kind of like that. So we need to peel back the onion a little bit to get to that harness and do our checks. I don't know if, I think this plastic just comes off. Shouldn't be terribly difficult to remove. These hoses, let me move those out of the way. You can see it right there. Little pigtail. Let's get to that. By the way, keep in mind this car sits a lot. Mouse droppings everywhere. Here, 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 here. So I wouldn't be surprised if a wire got a little chewed somewhere, because at 30,000 miles, you know, what are the chances that a cam sensor would fail? I mean, it's a BMW, so anything's possible, but considering this car sits and there's rodents in the engine bay, yeah. Well, I lifted up this plastic beauty cover, doing a visual inspection, and what do we see? I already see bare copper going to the ignition coil. You see that? And fluff, mouse nest material. So, see the harness for all these sensors. There's a cam sensor. It goes up here, and then along the conduit along the entire engine. So we have to get this cover off and do a careful inspection of that harness. Alright, so we have to get this giant cowl out of the way. Just a couple screws, and thankfully that isn't too hard. Now we can get to the last bolt here for that plastic cover. Okay. We should be able to sneak this thing. Oh, there's one more. Oh man, it smells like hot baked mouse droppings. Oh boy. Here we go. So, chewed wires, a nest. They're taking up residence in this valley. And then do we see any other chewed wires? So this is the wire that goes to that cam sensor, goes through this harness, and then the main computer harness is, well, the engine computer is right here, so you see this harness goes right to here. So I'm assuming the problem is going to be somewhere between the sensor and the computer in this zone. So we got to vacuum this out and then find the right wires. Shop vac, compressed air. Let's go to town. going to be interesting. Alright, we got the mouse condo cleaned out, and miraculously the only chewed wires that I see, just a little copper exposed, are these ones going to this #1 ignition coil. That's it. Everything else looks fine. So we can wrap those up, and then I want to install a little test light to check power and ground to this exhaust cam sensor. I have it unplugged, and I'm just using a little mini dash illumination light. This draws 100 milliamps. Perfectly computer safe. So just want to measure power and sensor ground. When we turn the key on, that light should light up. Let's see what happens. Alright, there's the baby test light. Let me pop the key on. Yep, we have good power. Okay, great. So power and ground verified. Let me log in, clear all the codes out. Then I want to put a meter on the signal wire, see if there's like a bias voltage coming from the engine computer. If there is, we'll put a scope on the signal wire, run it, see if there's a signal. I don't think this is mouse damage related. Okay, so key off. I'm on the signal wire. We're going to use the oscilloscope right off the bat. 4.8 volts. That seems reasonable. So now let's plug it into here. So I just tied into the signal wire, that yellow and blue in this harness. We have the same 4.8 volts. Plug in the cam sensor and run it and see what happens. So this is a little tricky to get to here. What is this? Guys, we have a bad cam sensor. That's garbage. 4.1 volts, and it's like drifting all over the place. Yeah, so we're done. It's not a mouse related problem. Let's log in here, clear out all the codes, run it, see what the signal looks like, and we'll call the sensor. Alright, let's do full code clear. Gotta love the topology and the speed of these launch scanners. So that's good. Let's roll the scope. So we're still at 0. Let's crank it up, see what happens. Alright, let's see what happens here. Got the scope rolling. Definitely have a signal. Okay, let's see if the ECM set any codes. No DTCs right now. So apparently this is known good. We have to take it on a test drive, see if this sensor heats up and drops out. So one thing that I don't really like about this waveform is, look, this level here, the high level, is kind of fluctuating. It's only at 3.6 volts. I think it should be 0 to 5 or 0 to 4.5 or something. So it does look like this cam sensor is failing in terms of the amplitude. You know, the pattern is fine. What we could do is compare it to the intake sensor, see what their amplitude looks like, and if they're different amplitudes, we're calling the sensor. I already know it's a bad sensor because the wiring checks out, you know, everything else checks out, powers, grounds. Let's compare it to a known good, one that didn't set a code, and we'll make the call and go to the dealer and get one sensor. Okay, second channel hooked up to the intake cam sensor signal, that black and blue wire. Let's run it, see if there's any difference. Alright, so we got 2 channels. Let's fire it up. Well, it must be on the wrong black and blue wire, because that's 0 volts. Let me double check. Yep, I got a little confused. Black and blue is the sensor ground, so that's why we saw 0 volts. We want the yellow, which is equivalent to the yellow and blue. So let me find that yellow wire. Alright, we're on the yellow wire, and check it out. This one's at 4.5, while the blue one is kind of wavy around 4. So again, cam sensor on the exhaust side is bad. Let's start it up. You see how the red high pulses is rock steady and the blue one is kind of floating around? Just a bad cam sensor. See that bias voltage? It just went up. The mice had nothing to do with it. So this variation in, look how clean the intake is. Look how crappy the blue trace is. Now I'm wondering, is it the cam sensor fault, or is it the computer? Because we saw that. Oh no, it has to be the sensor, because when we unplugged the sensor, it was, you know, rock steady at 4.5 or 4.8. So this is the sensor problem. When we plugged the sensor in, it pulled that high voltage down to 4 and it started going up and down. So yep, just needs a cam sensor. We'll order one up and this thing will be back on the road running 100%, hopefully. By the way, just another perfect example of why you absolutely 100% need an oscilloscope. You would not be able to pinpoint this problem without an oscilloscope. What would you do? Plug in a voltmeter would not show you anything. You need to see the signals. If it's a variable signal oscilloscope, that's it. That's kind of the takeaway here. So once we get the cam sensor in, we'll do a known good capture. Be back on the road.